Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. It's that time of year again where we do another late review. Except this time, it's 30 years late. Yeah, so I've been reaching in my back catalog, and what do you know, A Link to the Past on the SNES has been on my backlog for quite some time. So I thought, what the heck, I might as well do a video about it since the biggest games releasing at the moment are Monster Hunter Rise, which is a series I respect from afar, and Balan Wonderland, which is a game. So yeah, a 30-year-old game it is. If you like this video, give it a good old thumbs up. If you want to see more from the channel, then go ahead and subscribe for more content. Without further ado, let's get right into the review. A Link to the Past starts off with Link sleeping in his bed in the land of Hyrule, which has become a common trope throughout the series. Link is just always sleeping around, I don't know. He gets a vision from Zelda, the princess of Hyrule, and she tells him that she's been imprisoned by an evil wizard, and he's taken over the castle. He's trying to release his master from the Dark World. So of course it's up to Link to save the day. He goes to the castle to save the princess when he finds his uncle dead, somehow. There's no enemies around him, so I'm not sure how he died. But oh well, Link doesn't seem to care too much. Link then takes his uncle's sword and shield and leaves him without saying a word. What a nice kid. Link goes to save Zelda for the time being, and then sets off on a noble quest to defeat the evil wizard and save Hyrule from darkness. Link goes off to find 3 pendants around Hyrule in order to get the Master Sword, which is a blade that repels evil. Perfect for a bad wizard. Eventually, you go back to the castle to challenge the evil wizard. Link proceeds to fight him until the evil wizard sends him to the Dark World, which is a land similar to Hyrule but dark and edgy. The Dark World is filled with monsters and thieves. It's a bad place, y'all. In the Dark World, Link must rescue the 7 sages of Hyrule and face off with the real villain of the game, Ganon. The battle is intense, but Link eventually triumphs over the dastardly beast and saves Hyrule and its inhabitants. Also, it turns out your uncle is alive, which is great, but that raises several questions like, where did he go after that night? I honestly don't know, but oh well, at least he's feeling better. And that's it, the darkness has been conquered, and the land is safe. For now. I love the look of SNES games, and A Link to the Past is quite a looker. A Link to the Past was released in the early days of the SNES lifespan, so it doesn't have quite the best graphics on the system, but man, it's still a great looking game. The colors are vibrant, and the effects were flashy at the time. The art style is simplistic, and I think it still holds up because of it. I love the look of SNES games, and A Link to the Past is one of the games I think about when I think of the SNES graphics. If you've never played a traditional Zelda game before, then let's just start off with the basic elements. The Legend of Zelda games are primarily adventure games throughout the world and its dungeons. There is an overworld where you can collect more items and weapons that you wouldn't get in the dungeons. Dungeons are these labyrinth-like areas with different levels that you traverse in that have a plentiful amount of puzzles. The goal is to get a special key, normally called a boss key, and eventually face off against a boss with an attitude. Defeat said boss and ta-da! You get another piece of heart to your ever-growing collection and move on to the next dungeon. The key item / weapon will help you traverse more of the overworld and future dungeons. Alright, that concludes this portion of Zelda Gameplay 101. Now let's get into A Link to the Past specifically. It's probably the most formulaic Zelda game to release, and for that, it's pretty special. Keep in mind, this is A 30-year-old game, and B, this game in particular is the 3rd in the entire series. The series was still trying to find its footing. The first Zelda game was similar, but A Link to the Past established better world building and structured a more cohesive story, instead of this cryptic nonsense. The second Zelda game doesn't even look the same, and doesn't even play the same as the rest in the series. It's its own type of beast. A Link to the Past managed to take homage to mostly the first game and build onto its foundation. A Link to the Past may seem like a by-the-numbers Zelda game today, but it actually solidified the gameplay of the Zelda series so that the future entries in the series can build off that and try new things. That's not to say that A Link to the Past didn't bring anything new, but first let's discuss what the game improved on from the 2 Zelda games prior, which is everything. The dungeons have more substance, like the fact that puzzles don't boil down to move this random inconspicuous block one space to open a door. Like, come on, is this even a puzzle? A Link to the Past does this a few times, admittedly, but the puzzles do get better throughout the game, believe me. I like how some dungeons are structured differently than others. For example, there are normal looking dungeons that look like temples and such, but then you have some that are in a thieves' den or underground. It's crazy to think that the devs were so creative when making these dungeons, even back then. The combat is better with some added moves to Link's moveset, but to be fair, the combat is probably the weakest element in the game. There are unique scenarios where the enemies take more thought to take out, but most of the time it's slash stab dead. GG, F to pay respect, then move on. It's a weak element, sure, but it's not bad. Link is packed with a wide variety of tools and weapons that he can use to solve puzzles and kick butt. Of course, my favorite item of all time makes an appearance, and it's still amazing as ever. Each tool is useful, and it's challenging figuring out how to use each item to its fullest potential. The buttload of items are one of my favorite aspects in any Zelda game. Something about getting an item in a dungeon and using it to find secrets in the overworld is just so addicting to me. In A Link to the Past, you will be traversing in one of the most iconic overworlds in any game, period. Hyrule is its own character with so many secrets hidden in every corner. There's different biomes that Link has to traverse, and it brings more variation to the land. Link can even swim, which is excellent for new routes that would otherwise be impossible. The world is so lush and dense with so much to see and do. The people in this world will often tell you about secrets or rumors about certain areas where you can then search for hidden items. And just when you get used to the main overworld, something goes oh so wrong. The Dark World is introduced in a spectacular way. It slowly shows you sneak peeks before it just sends you there in a dramatic way. And you better believe that it still works to this day. Now you have a familiar world that resembles the original, but now more chaotic and unforgiving. Harder enemies, more elaborate dungeons, and more. This is the Dark World, baby. Get in, loser, we're going to the Dark World. Overall, the gameplay is a fantastic template for the Zelda series. Like I said before, the original Zelda has these main elements, but Link to the Past builds on those aspects. It makes a definitive experience out of them, making it so enjoyable to play through, unlike the original Zelda game. The music is classic, no doubt about that. There are tracks from A Link to the Past that have been remade in Zelda games that came after, such as Zelda's Lullaby, Kakariko Village, and so on and so forth. The music was composed and arranged by none other than Koji Kondo. This is a great soundtrack as a whole, with an adventurous tone throughout. The music still holds up to this day 30 years later, and it will never get old. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past is an incredible game, and while it has aged in a few areas, it's still a blast to go back to. There are some grievances I have with the game, like the fact that there are some things that the game just expects you to know, like opening this door in a specific way, or use a random item in this room. Stuff like that can kind of be annoying. I understand that the game doesn't need to explain everything, but in certain situations like that, like how am I supposed to know to open that door in that way? I even had this encounter with a lever that I knew how to interact with. I knew to push it to the left, but for some reason it just wouldn't let me. And then I looked it up to see if I was doing it wrong, and it was exactly what I was doing in the first place, which really annoyed me, not gonna lie. Also, there's some slowdown in certain places in the game, especially when there's flying enemies, which isn't a lot, but it's noticeable. But I digress. This is a great game, with a charming art style and a dense world for you to explore. It's not my favorite Zelda game, but it's one of the most important Zelda games because of how it solidifies the gameplay of the Zelda series. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. It's a great game, but I personally had a better time with the future entries. The overworld is iconic, but I personally don't jive with it as much as others. If you're a fan of the series, this is a must play. Also, let me know down in the comments below what you think about the game. Have you played it yet? Or are you more into 3D Zelda games? And if you have played it, Do you like it? Is it one of your favorite Zelda games? Or are you like me where it's definitely a great game, but it's just not my favorite? Thank you all for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. God bless.